Hello everybody. In this lesson we are going to talk about variable scope, and what that means is that your variables can behave differently depending on where they are declared in your code. So what I've done here is inside the JavaScript folder I've created this file called variable-scope.html. Go ahead and create that with me here. And then, so here it is over here on the right, and I just put in the starter code. So you can go ahead and put in the starter code, and then I set the title here to variable scope. So that's all I've done so far. Okay, why don't you go ahead and set that up, and then we'll also add a script element right underneath the title so we can add some JavaScript code. So I'm going to add the script element right there, opening and closing script tags, and then split those apart, and then we'll do all of our coding for this activity right here. Now I'm going to close this window just to give myself some more space, and then we'll get going here. Okay, to get this started, I want to let's just create a function here, and it's kind of a pointless function, but it'll demonstrate what we want to talk about, which is variable scope here. So here I'm going to go ahead and declare a function with the function keyword like that, and the name of this function is going to be check score camel case. Okay, and then let me just finish setting the table here by adding the parentheses and then the curly braces, and then I'm going to split those curly braces apart. That's what I call setting the table here. And now I am actually going to add a parameter to this function declaration. So I'm going to put my cursor in between the parentheses here and add a parameter called current score. Okay, so now, like I said, this is kind of a meaningless function, but the way it's supposed to work is that when you call it, you're supposed to pass in a number for your current score, and it will compare that to a high score. Okay, so inside the body of the function here, make sure your cursor is indented within the function body like mine is here. Let's go ahead and declare a constant, and we'll call this high score camel case. And we're going to initialize that to 99. Okay, I'm just making this up right here. Okay, so there we've got a variable called high score that we declared. And then underneath that, I'm going to put an if statement right here inside the body of the function. So let me set the table for an if statement. We type in if, a pair of parentheses, a pair of curly braces, and then I move my cursor in between the curly braces and split those apart like that. And that's what I call setting the table. And then I go back and fill in the details. So I'm going to go back to the parentheses. That's where our Boolean expression goes. Some people call it a condition. I always call it a Boolean expression, but that's where our we're going to put this here. We're going to check to see if the current score is greater than the high score, just like that. And then in the code block of the if statement, so I move my cursor down into that code block right there. I'm just going to do let's do a console log here. And then we'll make it say there is a new high score. Does this make sense? So this function will take a score, it'll compare it to the high score, and if it's higher, if the current score is higher than the high score, then we have a new high score. All right. Now, if you want, you can space things out here if it makes it easier for you to read. So like if I wanted to put a line break there and a line break there, some people would like that, and they would make some breathing room kind of helps with the readability for some people. Some people don't like it. It's up to you. But what's not optional is your indentation. Your indentation has to be there and it has to be correct. Otherwise, you can't read your code. Okay, now here's what I'm going to do here. I am going to put some code right here after this function. I am going to go ahead and alert the high score. Okay, here's what I'm getting at with this variable scope business right here. Now, this is going to crash the program. And the reason why is because this high score variable, it can't be used outside of the function. And the reason is because this variable was declared inside the code block for the body of the function. So I want to just demonstrate this here and we'll talk about it. I'm going to save this here, and then I'm going to go over to the browser. I've got some stuff going on here from my previous experimentation. But if I load the page here, notice that it crashed and it says high score is not defined, and it crashed on line 19. If I want, I can click on this and it'll show me right there, there's the problem line. And the reason why is because variables have what we call a scope. And in JavaScript, the scope of a variable is limited to the code block that it's declared within. Okay, so here, because this high score variable is declared within the code block for the function, that means that you can only use it inside the function. So there's a couple of ways I could fix this. If I wanted to, I could take the alert, the problematic code right here, and I could move it to inside the function. Let me do that right here. I'm just going to cut it from here, and I'm going to put it underneath the if statement right there. Okay, that should fix the problem. The only thing is now is that I'm not calling the function. So in order to see this work, I'd have to actually invoke the function. So I'll do that right here. I'll go check score, and I'll pass in a score of 100. Okay. Okay, so let me just pass in a score of 90. So we can talk about why I changed my mind here, but I don't want to have a new high score. Okay, all right, so anyways, there we go. And now what we're going to see is when we run the code here is we should see our alert and everything should work. And there's the high score, but the thing that's weird, whoops, let me do this again here. I'm going to clear everything out and run it again. Okay, so we invoked our function and our alert is no longer crashing because we moved it into the body of the function. Okay, now the other way that I could have fixed this is that I'm going to do Control Z here a few times, and you can do this with me. Control Z will undo your changes. So I'm just pressing Control Z here to undo things to where we had the alert outside of the function. Another way I could fix this is this variable that we're trying to alert here is out of scope here because it's only in scope inside of the function where it was declared. So if I took this variable right here and cut it and put it outside of the function, then that would fix the problem too. Okay, so whoops, I'm going to fix my indentation here like that. And then I'm just going to clean up some things like that. Okay, so here's another way I could fix the problem. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And now everything should work because the high score variable is no longer inside of the code block for the function. So let me just show you that there's no errors here. So if I reload the page, there we go. And there's the alert and there's no problems and everything's working. Okay, so you have to be careful with where you declare your variables because they're only in scope within the code block in which they are declared. Okay, I'm going to give you another example here. So what I want to do is comment out everything we've done so far. I'm going to put the opening multi-line comment right there with the / asterisk, and then I'm going to close it here with asterisk / and we're going to start fresh here. Whoops. Okay, so we'll get that out of the way, and let's do another example here. So this one isn't going to be dealing with any functions at all. We're just going to not even use a function here. So let's do this. Let's declare a constant, and we'll call it score, and we'll set it equal to, we'll call the prompt function here, and we'll pass in a string that says enter your score, like that. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is put an if statement here, and I'm going to say if score is greater than 90, and I didn't really set the table here, but I'll finish setting the table like that. Put my curly braces, go ahead and set up an if statement like that, and then inside the block for the if statement, the code block for the if statement, declare a variable and call it grade and set it equal to the string A. Okay, now after the if statement, if I tried to console log the grade, again, it's not going to work. And the reason why is because the grade variable is declared within the block of code for the if statement. So that's the only area in the program that this can be used, is inside the code block in which it's declared. So here, if you run this, you'll see that you get a similar error to what we saw before. Okay, I want to show you how you can fix this. If I know I'm going to initialize a variable inside of an if statement, and then I maybe need to use that variable elsewhere outside of the code block, then what I could do is I'm going to declare it with let before the if statement. So I'll go ahead and I'll do let grade, and I won't initialize it. So I'll just leave it uninitialized like that, and it'll have a value of undefined. Okay. Now down here, I have to remove the const keyword because you're not allowed to declare a variable more than once. So, and notice that I had to use let here because I'm changing its value right there. Okay, now this will fix the problem. And let's just run this real quick. Maybe I want to make some breathing room here. I'm not really sure. I'll just set it up like this, but you get the idea. Okay, so this is pretty common if you might have to pull a variable declaration up outside of a code block so that you can keep it in scope in other parts where you want to use it. Okay, so go ahead and save that and then reload the page here. It's going to prompt me to enter my score. I'm going to enter 99, and then I see that my console log worked now. Okay, so that's something that you may have to think about as you're writing your code. But it is common to declare variables and don't initialize them. And then inside various other code blocks that are nested within your program, you can go ahead and initialize the variable. And then you can use the variable outside of that code block. Okay. All right. Now what I want to talk to you about now is local variables and global variables. So, and this has to do with variable scope. Okay. Let's declare another function here. So I'm going to go ahead and comment out this example like so. Okay, and then I'm going to start fresh here. I'm going to declare a variable with const, and I'm going to call it sales tax rate. So go ahead and do this with me. And then we're going to set that equal to 0.05, like 5% sales tax. Okay, use camel case for your sales tax rate variable name. Okay, and then I'm going to declare a function. So we'll go function, and then this function is going to be called calculate total cost, camel case, calculate total cost. And then I'm going to put my parentheses and my curly braces, and then I'm going to split the curlies apart, setting the table here. Okay, and then I'm actually going to add a parameter. So I'm going to put my cursor right there in between the parentheses, and the parameter is going to be called price. So the way this is going to work is you're going to pass in the price of a product when you call this function, and it's going to calculate the total price by adding the tax. Okay, so what I want to do here is inside the body of this function, I'm going to declare a constant and call it tax and set that equal to the price parameter multiplied by the sales tax rate that we declared up above. Like that. Okay, and then the next line, I'm going to hit enter here, and we are going to return the total price. So here to do that, that's the price with the taxes. So I'll do return and then price plus tax. Does that make sense? All right, there's a few things at play that I want to talk about here. First of all, we're declaring a variable inside of this function. It's tax. So there we declare a variable and we initialize it by multiplying the price parameter by the sales tax variable up above. Okay, when you declare a variable inside of a function, whoops, what did I do there? Something funny happened there. When you declare a variable inside of a function, we call that a local variable. Okay, so this variable tax is a local variable. And now remember, it's only in scope inside of this function. And that's why they call it local, is because you can only use this variable inside the function code block in which it's declared. Okay, so if I tried to console log tax out here outside of the function, we'd see the same error that we were seeing before. But what I want you to know is a local variable is one that's declared inside the code block for a function, inside the body of a function. Okay, we have another variable here that's not declared inside of any block. And when you have a variable like that, that's called a global variable. Okay, that means that it can be used globally anywhere in your program. So the scope of a global variable, one that's not declared inside of any code block, is global. It can be used anywhere in your program. Okay, so we have global variables. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a comment here. Global variable. Okay. And then we have local variables, variables that are declared inside the body of a function. Okay, so here we can say tax is a local variable. Okay, and so I want you to know what both those terms mean. So a global variable, because it's not declared inside of any code block, it can be used globally throughout your program. That's why they call it global. A local variable is one that's declared inside the body of a function. Okay, and that's a variable that can be used anywhere inside of the function, but it can't be used outside of the function. So we've got global and local variables. And the other big takeaway from this video is understanding the scope of a variable. Now, different programming languages have different rules for the scope of a variable, but JavaScript uses a pretty common convention, which we call block scoping, meaning that when you declare a variable, it's only in scope inside the block in which you declare it. Okay, so this is important because to understand this, and it comes into play as we move further into the program and get into more of the details of programming.